Hello and welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I am pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah. I'm doing well. Watched a couple of things. I guess we'll probably end up talking about Star Trek later, but we'll leave that for later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wanna kick us off? What have you been watching?
Shall we start with the Apollo?
Oh yes, the movie that we've both watched. So I was kind of like you, because we talked earlier in the week and you were like, oh, I haven't seen much, and I was like, yeah, neither have I. And I was kind of desperately looking for something, and I saw the trailer for or I saw it on Netflix. You know, you get that auto trailer for Apollo 10 and a half, Space Age Childhood, and I wasn't really that sold on it, but I was like, well, I kind of need to watch something. So I put it on, and I really enjoyed this movie. I'm curious what you made of it, though.
Well, like when I mentioned I hadn't seen anything, and I had seen that trailer, and I don't know who that is for. I wasn't, it was like
yeah.
And then you said, oh, I give, I've watched that, and I thought, oh, okay,
yeah.
If you've watched it, at least that gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
And I really liked it as well.
It's not what I thought it was at all.
No.
And I really was just, it was just a real joy to watch, to be honest. I can't yeah.
I think the first time I saw the trailer, I didn't realise, I obviously didn't notice that it was a Richard Linklater movie.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have at least made me go, oh, it's Linklater. So even though I don't really know what it's about, sort of thing, I'll give it, because I like the but the Before trilogy, and I liked Boyhood. I thought that was a really good movie.
Yes, yeah.
So,
and of course, it's from the Scanner Darkly studio, so it's in that style, and I guess we'll talk about that style in a bit.
Yeah.
So this is basically a film set before Apollo 11, before the moon landing.
Yeah.
And it's a fourth grader, or an adult, recounting his kind of fourth grader imagination, as he kind of he imagines that he is, they made this moon lander that's too small, so they hire this 10-year-old or however old he is, I guess he's 10 and a half, to go into space and be the first boy in space. That's like kind of the setup, but the movie's really not about that at all.
It goes into that, and you sort of think, God, where is this movie going to go?
It was starting to lose me.
Yeah.
When they got to the bit with the playground, which is right at the start, I was like, this is kind of charming, but you're kind of losing me. And then we get the suits turn up, and
who is this bloody movie for? This is the Is it? Because it's not really a kids' movie.
No, it's not at all.
It is. It's
kind of.
And I thought Jack Black did a sterling job as the voiceover.
Absolutely, I thought it was fantastic.
Which I've heard him do stuff for voiceover work before, so I was like more than happy to hear his voice.
Sure.
He does have a very good voice.
He does, yeah. He really does, and I thought he did a fantastic job here. But what this movie really is like
his mother worked on the Apollo missions.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his I can't remember whether she's a scientist or what, but he's Jack Black's parents, I think, are scientists.
But what this movie really is, outside of the wonder of space, so obviously he grows up in the area where all of these, everyone works for NASA, basically.
Yeah. It's like an area. Is it just outside Houston? Or
just outside of Houston, and I know, like, Richard Garriott, who made the Ultima video games and stuff. He's from an astronaut family, and basically he said that where these people live, everyone there works for NASA and is involved in NASA. And this kid grows up there. Now, his imagining being on the moon, that does happen in the movie. That's a very small percentage of the movie, though. Mm-hmm. And what we really have here is kind of just a slice of 60s, growing up in the 60s and life in the 60s. And I thought this was charming as hell once it got into it.
I think a lot of people it will probably bug a lot of people.
I think it might, actually. It could have gone one way or the other. I was wondering how it would go with you, actually. I was curious.
Well, I think that the thing is that though I didn't grow up in the 70s, I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
The 80s was so steeped in that, when he goes to the bit where he's talking about the TV shows he watched, you know, sort of firsthand. I grew up watching all those TVs as well. Obviously, not when they were
in syndication, and
I watched all those TV, and I sort of was one of those kids who loved watching the space stuff. I mean, at school we watched one of the shuttles take off, but one year, thankfully not the really bad one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember, so even though I'm not a 60s person, I grew up with a reverence for the 60s. I mean, one of my favorite fucking shows is Star Trek. So
absolutely.
That sort of love and for the whole space stuff, started with all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a complete nostalgia fueled.
That's all it is. It's kind of someone just talking about their childhood effectively and going through things they watched, things they did in the 60s.
Yep.
Life in the 60s.
All the stuff around the Houston area, or they went to the cinema they went to see Sound of Music with their grandma.
It's the pop culture of the time, the music, the films.
And one of my favorite bits was when they're in the car with
the hippie.
Dad. No, that
when the mum's going pointing out the hippie, so that was hilarious.
One was good as well. The one where she says it's that hippie. Yeah, he's got long hair. He's hippie. What about that one?
No, his hair's too short.
He's got too short hair. And but he's wearing bell bottoms. And the mum says, "Yeah, he's a hippie," and puts the lockdown. That is fucking.
Put the lockdown. It's made me laugh. Yeah.
No, my favourite bit was when they were in the car with the dad, and he said,
"I love the dad in this movie. It's fantastic."
In the footwell and says, "Now you see, there's a difference between a redneck and white trash. White trash throws their cans out of the window. A redneck chucks his can in the car and stays there. And then this kid says, 'Does that mean we're rednecks?' He says, No. You're going to clear that up when we get home."
No, I absolutely loved the dad in this. I thought he was fantastic. And my dad is not like that, but I remember dads like that.
Yeah,
and obviously I didn't grow up in the 60s, but I know, I've known
pitching dads. Who were tried to get every deal and tried to get every fucking ounce of
stealing the wood.
Yes,
to make the ping pong table.
The kid says,
"Is this stealing, Dad?"
No, because we overprayed for the house.
Yeah, so I think they owe us.
I love when he's trying to get he makes the petrol pump pretend and
get the last of the
lift
gas
up
out.
the line to get every ounce of every drop of petrol. Like, I've paid for that, and that's mine.
Yeah, he's like, put it back in, and I'll empty it from the back up. Yeah, it was fantastic. I loved him. I genuinely as like this kind of nostalgic slice of the late 60s. I loved this movie. I really, really did. I can't it's not got my I was kind of conflicted because I'm watching it and I'm like, half of it, it's not even plot half the time. It's just remember this from the 60s and we did this in the 60s.
It's exactly that.
But there was something I just really enjoyed about it, and I just really loved watching it. I was kind of
he's talking about the TV shows. He literally just lists off a bunch of TV
and you see them all. Obviously they're cel shaded, but you see them all. And the music is the same as well.
One of my favourite uses of astronomy donomy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of people that watched it and they wanted to have the whole, we should have seen more about the civil rights stuff and we should have been more. And it's but as he says in the thing, it's not about that.
It is mentioned, and he says the same about the war. He's like
perspective.
Yeah,
and just that as a kid, those things are in. You notice those things, but they're so far away that you don't.
Yeah.
Only his older sister give a crap about any of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great line in this where he says, the war was going on, and people were dying, but we just thought that's what adults did, and so to us kids, we didn't see it. It was great. It was a great time for kids, for us. I loved it. And it got that. I don't know. I like that child daydream and the awe and wonder around the Apollo landing and all of that stuff. I thought it was great. I don't think it's going to be for everyone.
No, I think it's because it's pure nostalgia bait. Anybody who doesn't give a crap about the 60s is going to care. Anybody who doesn't care about space or space travel
is
or
not going to care.
Not going to care, and that's fine. And I think some people have said, "Oh, it's a coming of age thing," and other people said, "Oh, it's not a coming of age thing because it doesn't." It's like somebody said it was not a coming of age thing because he doesn't overcome anything. It's like, well, that doesn't make a coming of age thing. A coming of age is just literally growing up.
He's literally coming of age.
You don't need to overcome things to grow up.
No,
a lot of people don't. But I really enjoyed it. It's just sort of fun and frothy, and it's just really fun entertainment.
Yeah,
it's all the voices are great. I mean, I don't recognise really any of the cast other than Zachary Levi, who was one of the
officials,
NASA people, and I mean Lee Eddy, who played the mum, was so sweet.
She was.
And the dad was fantastic, and
it's Bill Wise, wasn't it? The dad.
Was it Bill? Was that Bill Wise?
Yeah. I absolutely loved this movie. But like I said, it's not really what the trailer makes it out to be.
No.
And it is a lot of like, this happened in the 60s. And we used to watch these shows, and we used to, but as someone who didn't grow up in the 60s, but who loves a lot of what came out of the 60s, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed just seeing that slice of life.
But I think it's not just that. I think it also, even though, like you said, neither of us grew up in the 60s, but I think I can relate to the things like,
oh, for sure,
growing up with I didn't have older siblings, but I had cousins.
Yeah.
And I would go round to my cousin's house and we'd listen to whatever my cousins were listening to. So you'd have, my cousin Sharon would be listening to sort of pop stuff, and my cousin Jace would be listening to something in rap or something, and somebody else would be listening to rock music. And you'd get all these influences, and you'd hear weird things like the Archies.
And you talk about you said about them saying that it wasn't a coming of age movie because he didn't overcome anything. But I think it's the absolutely a coming of age movie. There's the bit when he's talking about vinyl and what they were listening to.
Yeah.
And he says, like, I can't remember what the album was now, but he was like, oh, and I love this artist, especially his new album. And it's like, obviously because of the cover. Like, obviously he is
Herb
coming
Albert?
of age.
I think it was like Herb Albert, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, obviously he's coming of age,
I had a very similar thing with, it was one of those really bad hits on things, where they did bad covers.
Uh-huh.
Like, they weren't the original artists singing the songs, like bad cover bands, but the covers were always almost naked ladies, and I remember seeing those album covers like, this is the best album ever.
I don't know what it sounds like.
Fucking awful.
But it's exactly. Brilliant.
No, it's really fun. It's really and the animation is great.
Yes, so the animation is obviously that the same way that you had a Scanner Darkly. Or like Waking Life, it's
sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know that the film needed it, but I like it.
I think I kind of I think because it's animated, I think it does give you that almost dreamlike quality that.
Yes, I agree.
Adds to the nostalgia. I think
it's really weird when it gets to parts of the movie where it's showing other TV shows.
Yeah.
But they're rotoscoped.
Yeah.
Or it even shows photographs, like a Polaroid, but the Polaroid's obviously rotoscoped, even though it's a still image. But yeah, I really liked it.
The Kennedy speech about going to the moon and stuff. It's like it just seems really weird that you would just rotoscope it, because most people know what that.
Yeah.
Seen that speech. It is a bit weird, but
it is a little. I do like as well that this film actually addresses something that no other film ever did about the moon landings, which is that it went on for fucking ever, and all the kids by the end of it had just fallen asleep. They're like, I'm done. I'm too tired. I've been waiting too long. Again,
that was one of my favourite moments towards the end, where they've been out all day and they come home and they're waiting for the actual landing, and he's led there on his sort of like leaning into his mother sort of thing, and you can see him. It's like his eyes are almost completely closed, and he's just paying attention to it. But you can he's mixing it with his imagination. I thought that was beautifully done.
Yeah, and of course you've got his father, who is he works for NASA.
Yeah, he's acquisitions and
like his son wants him to be an astronaut or to be really involved. But I love like his dad's like proud as punch that they've made it, they've landed and stuff, and he's so disappointed all of his kids are like falling asleep or going to bed and like, I'm done. Like, but yeah, I thought this was a really charming just all the feels. I liked it.
Yeah, completely. And I'm considering I wasn't going to watch it. I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it, because I always worry when I'm like, oh, I just enjoyed this, because I was like, oh, you might not, because it is. I had a feeling you would like it because we have quite similar nostalgic tastes and taste in things, but it was that kind of, this film is going to be Marmite for people. Like,
oh yeah, and it was actually kind of nice to have a 60s nostalgia as opposed to 80s.
I'm so bored of 80s nostalgia. So yeah, 60s nostalgia. I was like, oh, cool. It was nice. Really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend that one. Anyway, what else have you been watching?
So I saw the first season of Archive 81.
Yes, Archive 81, which I have not seen. So I'm curious about this one.
So this is going to actually be a hard sell, because I found out yesterday that they've already cancelled it.
There was a series that I really wanted to watch, and I can't even think of the name of it anymore. It was effectively, it was a buddy cop series, Carl Urban and an android. And I've never watched it because I knew it was cancelled, and I was like, I just don't want to,
It's worth watching.
I know, I hear that, but I'm like, I'll get sucked in, and
it's got like the early role for Gina Carano in it.
Oh, nice. I mean, my fiance got me into Santa Clarita Diet, which I avoided like the plague because I knew it had been cancelled.
Yeah,
and I was like,
but it got the good thing about that is it got a good run, and at least they were able to complete it.
It did, yeah.
It totally could have carried on, but
God, I was heartbroken. We got to the end of season 3, and I was like, oh. I knew I would feel this way, and now I really want this show to come back, and it's not.
I mean, it's not as bad as the big one, the OA for me. That.
Oh, the OA, yeah, that's another one. Oh,
I know we've said this many times, but
Netflix.
The OA was so fucking good.
Of all the shows to cancel, the OA was not the one.
No,
I would have cancelled. Well, I mean, obviously, money-wise, you can, but I would have cancelled Stranger Things over the OA.
Yeah, same here.
No, that wouldn't make.
And I like Stranger Things.
So do I.
Much better.
So do I. But yeah. Anyway, so Archive 81.
So Archive 81. So we are introduced to Dan Turner, played by I'm going to butcher your name, I'm afraid. Madhu Athi, who is a sort of archivist and restorer of old movies and old film, and he works in the museum, this museum for film. And he is always on the lookout for this thing called The Circle, which was a kind of a TV series that didn't get properly finished. It was a TV series that was kind of like the Twilight Zone. And the rumor is one of the stories were based on real events in old Hollywood. So there's one of the sort of most famous ones is like this cult sacrificing this girl, and the guy who did it said that he was at a party that this happened, that sort of thing, and he is hired by this guy called Virgil Davenport. He basically goes to him and says, I've got this job for you. It's repairing all of these videotapes from a camera that were in this building. Now it was in this building burnt down, and 13 people went missing, or sort of thing. And this is the sort of last thing that was left from it. And he says, the tapes are delicate, so you can't move them from where they are. So they're in this this place. We built this. We bought this center years ago, and we never got round to using it. It was going to be, I can't remember whether he says it was going to be a school or an event center or something. But he says we were going to do something with it, and we never got round to it. He says, but you can't leave. You can leave if you want, sort of thing. You can come and go to the town. There's a town not so far away. There's bikes there, sort of thing. And he says, I know you've had, I've looked into you. I know you've had sort of some troubles and things. He says, but if you phone us, we'll send a mental health guy and that. And you find out that his own his family died in a fire as well.
Right.
His dad was a psychiatrist, and he had a sister, and he basically went for a walk with the dog, sort of thing, and when he came back, the house was on fire. So his family died. So he's got this weird sort of link to them, so it would seem. So he goes to this place and he starts fixing these tapes, and he is then through the tapes he's introduced to Melody,
right?
Who is played by Dinah Shahabi, and she is doing this project on the building that burned down. Well, obviously, it's still it's there. So she gets an apartment in the building, and she starts meeting the people there and asking them questions about if they know anything about the history. And she basically ends up with Jess, who's this young girl who basically does odd jobs for everybody in the building. She goes and gets tea for them, or she picks things up for them, and she does little odd jobs for them, and she just wanders around. So she gets in with Jess, and Jess answers a question, and Jess has these sort of weird seizures, and her mother takes her to this priest, and there's weird things going on there. And then you get this, there's some sort of weird thing going on in this common room sort of upstairs, and it gets weirder and weirder as you go along, and sort of each episode is sort of like interspersed with how Dan is coping with fixing these tapes and watching these tapes, and then you're with Melody as she's finding things out about this building and the people that live there, the people past lived there and things like that. And it's billed as a sort of horror, drama horror mystery, and it's not like a full on horror. It's more of a sort of slow burny, sort of more like I guess those sort of ghosty type.
Sure.
Movies. It's got more of that sort of feel,
mm-hmm.
And it did make remind me of the OA at places, and it did remind me of things like Fringe in places and stuff like that. And you get this sort of there's some sort of you find that there are links to this cult that from the 20s, I think, or the 30s, this Hollywood cult that were worshipping this god, and there's this link to this meteor that is passing by, and Dan, in one of the tapes that Dan's fixing, he finds his dad's on it.
Okay.
So there's a sort of a wider thing that's going on, and the guy who hired him clearly hired him because he's linked to these tapes.
Yeah.
And you get that they start interacting between these tapes, the two characters, and you sort of think, well, are they dreaming, or is it just that he's got an active imagination? But then he watches one of the tapes, and she says a line that he said to her in his dream.
Right.
So they're
linked, and
communicating through these sort of dreams. I really loved it.
Well, that's great.
It's really,
but it's been cancelled.
Yeah, it kind. I mean, it sort of ends the one story, if you like.
Yeah.
But it ends on a cliffhanger.
Okay, so it can be watched as a self-contained series if you ignore the.
Yes.
Yeah. It wraps up the
story.
It
it shows you certain things with the circle, and you find out certain things about this god, and you find out what happened to Melody. And I think it was it started out as a podcast, I think, this.
Oh, really?
So I don't know whether they've continued it through other means.
Possibly.
But one thing that I didn't figure out until much later is, so the main character is called Dan T.
Right.
The guy who hires him is called Virgil.
Okay.
And the group is called The Circle.
Ah, interesting.
So it's like, oh, I didn't figure that out when I was watching it. It was only later. It was like,
really? Oh, so actually, it was kind of done in such a way that you didn't twig.
No, not until I really thought about it.
That's
later.
interesting.
It's like, oh, damn that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's some really lovely little.
I always enjoy those twists that were in plain sight. You know, when you're like, oh yeah, like I didn't even notice that. Those little details. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the performances are great. Mamadou Athie is really he's really cool as the main character. I'm not sure I've seen him in anything else. I think I've only seen him in a few like minor roles. Oh, he was in actually Underwater.
Oh, that's interesting. You should bring up Underwater, but we'll get to that in a minute.
And he was in Black Box as well. So I have actually seen him in a few things. Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed his performance. He's vulnerable. He's got that slightly damaged. He's just broken up with his girlfriend. He obviously had sort of a bad childhood. Well, after his parents, and Melody I thought was a really great character as well. And yeah, everybody's got their little part. And there's some real nice sinister moments. There's a couple of little sort of jumpy scares that they're not overdone or anything. They're just there. But I love the whole sort of Hollywood cult angle and the sort of the idea of this sort of god on this meteor sort of thing, or possibly, or the sort of, and the beyond. All the people that live in the building. There's an artist who lived with her sister, and there's a woman who is a medium,
right?
And she's recording all soap operas because she believes that the soap operas are giving her messages.
Okay. And
when the place that Dan's in is a huge place. It's and half of it's locked off, but it's all like state of the art. And there's he's told not to go down in certain bits. There's a chapel that's sort of like a bit dilapidated and no one's used it for a while. And he breaks into one bit at one point and he finds all of the tapes from these soap operas that this woman, and there's maybe a hint that maybe someone was here before doing a similar job.
Right. Yeah.
I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. It's a really fun series, and I'm really sad that it's not going to get another season. Because it does end with a cliffhanger. You do get, they could have definitely continued the story.
It'd be interesting to see if they have, or if they, if they have plans to.
I hope they did. And there was another series that it vaguely reminded me of as well, which was a BBC one called The Living and the Dead.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that either.
Which was a really great series. It's about this woman who goes to this house,
right.
And she's I think it's I can't remember if it's one of her ancestors or whatever it is, but he supposedly murdered his family and stuff. And it goes from it gets from like Victorian times to sort of now, and there's a weird sort of the guy in the Victorian times keeps he sees this ghost, and my wife bloody worked out what it was before I did. This kid draws this picture of this figure holding this light, and my wife was like, "That's an iPad."
Oh.
And it's like, oh fuck, yeah, that's an iPad, and you figure out that he sees the woman from like now.
Right.
It's really good to. And at one point, in the when you're in the Victorian bit in this village, they dig up a car.
Nice.
And I really love that, and that got cancelled after one season as well. And I was really hopeful that maybe someone would write a book and finish it off, because that ends on a cliffhanger as well. And it reminded this archive 81 reminded me of that as well. It had a sort of similar, feel of the cross times, interacting with each other.
I like that kind of
I really recommend it, and I think it's a shame that it got cancelled, but I think it's still worth watching. It's still it's nicely shot in parts. There's some really lovely sort of some visuals. I really liked it. There's some real sort of play with the tape stuff, and it's really enjoyable. Really liked it.
Well, I will have to give that a go. I think, despite being cancelled, it sounds like it's my bag.
I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah. So, I watched Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin.
Oh.
And the main reason, I mean, I quite like found footage movies anyway. I think I've said that before. But this particular film, I thought the trailer was actually pretty interesting. And it's also directed by William Eubank, who did Underwater. Okay. I was curious, and I thought I would give it a go.
I loved Underwater.
So did I. Underwater was just one of those great movies I thought was going to be awful, and I ended up watching it and thoroughly enjoyed. So I thought I'd give it a go. And I am a fan of some of the Paranormal Activity movies. I know it's Marmite. A lot of people don't like them.
I've seen one of them.
Yeah, it's either for you or it's not really. So this movie is something a bit different. And in fact, I think the trailer made it quite clear this is something a bit different. This centers around a character called Margot, and she finds out that her mother abandoned her when she was a child outside a hospital, and she's managed to find out that she has a blood relative in this Amish, or they think Amish community, in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. So she has a cameraman friend who's like, hey, I want to make a documentary about this. So they head out there to live with this Amish community, and as she tries to uncover the past about her mother, Sarah. And it's a reasonably predictable story. There's this obviously there's some things going on behind the scenes, and there's something down in this well, and what's it all about, and it's kind of very predictable almost immediately what's down, or at least it was for me pretty predictable what was down there to begin with. The cinematography in places in this movie is really, really good. I think William Eubank has a really good eye, and the color grading and shots in this are occasionally really, really gorgeous. The film itself, though, is not so good. So they've decided to it's kind of found footage, but then it would occasionally cut to shots that you're like, well, that can't be found footage. How did you get that shot? So it's kind of sometimes found footage, sometimes not, in a weird kind of mix, which I'm not sure how well that worked. And a reasonably predictable story. I thought the Margot was played really, really well by, who was the actress? Emily Bader. Mm-hmm. She was fantastic. I thought she was a really good performance, but a very predictable plot. And the worst, it commits that worst sin, and it's the sin we talked about with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay.
The Amish community, they got they are what they are, but these fucking people are so rude from the moment they turn up. They're fucking assholes to this, just in general.
Yeah.
They're just fucking assholes. And I'm like, I hate you, all of you, all three of you. I can't. I hope you do die, because you're acting like jackasses and being really disrespectful from the moment you turn up to this community. I'm like, I don't like you, and that's a central problem to these movies. I think it's like, you're being really disrespectful to these people, and now I'm kind of on their side. which is probably where I shouldn't be, right? But yeah, so there's this church in the middle of nowhere that they find with a drone, and then there's a pit that they kind of lower down to, and then they discover there's something living down there, and what's it going to be? And it's all pretty predictable. It's got some interesting concepts, but it's really not scary at all. I don't think there was a single moment where I was like, oh, where some of those Paranormal Activity movies, I think they've done some effective scares in the past. This really didn't do that, and there's long periods of time with not very much going on at all. It does loosely tie in to the other movies, although I'm not sure how the timeline works out. Basically, it's the same demon. That's like the only tie. There's like a million of them. Yeah, I have seen them all. I've forgotten most of them at this point, but I have seen them all.
I know your partner likes.
Yes. Well, during lockdown, I was like, well, I've got time, So I watched all of them. I caught up honestly, on the ones I hadn't seen.
All of these ones and the other sort of ghosty ones, they all sort of merge in my head.
Yeah.
I don't have a sort of. I don't like dislike them or anything. I'm kind of indifferent to them.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the whole haunting ghost thing. Like I enjoy watching those clips on YouTube of scariest videos and all of that, like real ghost sightings. And you're like, I'm watching it, I'm like, this is clearly fake. Like all of these are clearly fake. But I do enjoy them as like a bit of cinematography scare kind of factor. So, it works for me, that kind of found footage thing. This movie's not, it's kind of half and half. It's like, I don't know why because the one thing that was the selling point of Paranormal Activity movies was that it was found footage, and it's kind of bizarre to me that this movie's like mostly found footage, but then sometimes not, and that is kind of an odd mix. But like I said, some of the cast are fine. The story was interesting enough, if not predictable. But ultimately, it kind of feels like an attempt at a reboot that kind of fails for me. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people have said, because I saw some reviews today that were truly hating on this movie. I think it's pretty well directed in places. I think some of the shots are really
is it just kind of more of the same then, really? Is it?
Well, it's not more of the same, and I guess that's probably half the problem. I mean, now we're the conceit of most of these movies is, hey, I'm gonna set up cameras around the house and film what happens, and that does kind of change towards the later entries in the series. But this one is like, no, we're in this Amish community, and there's a documentary filmmaker, and it's a lot slower paced and less scares and more kind of build up, and some of it's effective, some of it isn't. I'm kind of very 50-50 on this one. I don't think it's a terribly good movie, but I think it's got some great shots. And I think that Emily Bader, I thought, was actually really good in her performance as Margot. It's weird. You've got some very effective shots towards the end of the movie, but it's like, this is literally the end of the movie, and where were some of these earlier? It sets up, obviously, for sequels. Whether they'll ever happen, I don't know. I don't know how well this movie did. But very middle of the road, predictable. It's not great, but it's not absolutely awful.
It's Blumhouse, right?
I think all the Paranormal Activity movies.
So my guess, I think they all do pretty well because they don't have massive budgets, do they? So
no, exactly.
I think that's one of the beauties of those movies, is they usually do pretty well for their budgets.
Yeah, I always find it weird in these movies as well. Like, as soon as the night vision gets turned on, they're always like terrified and out of breath, and like, it's like, just turn night vision on. It's not like, if anything, turning night vision on should calm you down. You can see better.
Yeah, you can actually see. that fucking helps a lot.
But yeah, I don't know. And obviously he's got that conceit of like, the fucking guy who's going to film everything regardless of how dangerous and deadly the situation is, dedication to the craft of filmmaking.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing about that archive 81 is it quite because of the Melody character, she's sort of filming everything. There are times when obviously you're seeing her point of view when it gets into her story, you're seeing her. You know, you're not just seeing the found footage stuff. You're actually seeing her character and her interact with the other characters. But there are moments where, you know, like there's a bit where she sort of she sort of faints and the camera drops and the camera's still filming something going on in the background while
that's fine. Yeah, that works.
That stuff works. I like that when they do stuff like that. And you know, when found footage stuff can be really good.
Oh, it can. And I mean, the conceit in this, which is I think it's really the conceit in most found footage movies, is that the camera's the only torch I've got.
Yeah.
You don't need to be recording though. And to be fair, in terms of preserving your life, the battery will probably last a lot longer if you're not filming.
Yeah.
Just turn the torch on, turn the rest of the camera off. But yeah, it you know, it is what it is. I didn't absolutely hate it, but I didn't think it was particularly good either.
Well, I think I've only seen like one of them, so
yeah, I wouldn't suggest this is the one you should jump into. Unlike, it's weird there. Every movie's going with this kind of, it's like folk horror is like the thing now.
Yeah, it's sort of coming. It's making a comeback, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, because Wrong Turn did the same thing last year.
Yeah.
Although I actually thought Wrong Turn was actually quite. I thought Wrong Turn.
I still haven't seen that. That's on my list.
It's a better movie than it had any right to be.
Because of your recommendation, I put it on my list.
I mean, it's not. It's not going to blow your mind. But I was I think I was just so surprised that they made something. It was way better than it had any right to be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and different from the original as well.
Oh yeah, very different. Yeah. But yeah, so that was my rambling review for Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin. So what else have you been watching?
So I saw The Bubble.
The Bubble. So this is a film about filming in the pandemic. Is that right?
Yes. So it's a Judd Apatow film who. It's a bit hit and miss in his movie making. There are some of his movies that I really like. There's some of them that are a bit, but it's mostly funny, I think. So it's got a massively great cast. It's got Peter Serafinowicz in it. It's Karen Gillan, Rob Delaney. It's got appearances from Guz Khan, Leslie Mann's in it. Pedro Pascal, Keegan Michael Key, David Duchovny, Kate McKinnon. It's got a really good sort of its cast list, and so basically this is so the pandemic hits and this group of actors they've been making these things called cliff beasts,
right?
And it's like a bunch of scientists fighting these cliff beasts. It sounds very like, you know, Sharknado movie.
It sounded like I immediately thought of Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yeah, we kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's this is going to be Cliff Beast 6.
Okay.
And they've got this. They're going to be filming in this hotel in England, in the middle of England somewhere. And it's this, you know, big country estate.
Are they playing themselves, by the way?
No.
I was going to say, because Karen Gillan's way too big an actress to be in, like, Cliff Beast 6 right now. You know? like, I could buy David Duchovny, but,
yes.
You know.
Yeah. There's a couple of people that are playing themselves. Beck is playing himself.
Nice.
And, oh, God, what's his name? Young Professor X.
McAvoy?
McAvoy, yeah, McAvoy's has a very, very brief cameo, and he's playing himself.
Right.
But everybody else is playing a character. So Karen Gillan is Carol Cobb, who she's got this boyfriend who is living in her house, and he's like not working and stuff, and she's he's clearly not as impressed with her as she is with him, but you know he's kind of looks like he's living off of her. And she skipped the last. She was in the originals, but she skipped the last one to make to make a movie about uh, Palestine and Israel,
Okay.
where she played a half Palestinian, half Israeli, um, who who brings peace because they have to fight the aliens. It brings them together because they have to fight it.
Brilliant. They're unified in a common enemy.
Yeah, and obviously that movie didn't do very well. So she's come back for Cliff Beasts 6.
Right. So that was meant to be her like defining role that was gonna push her into.
Supposed to be her breakaway role.
Yeah.
So she's back, and you've got Peter Serafinowicz, who's Gavin, he's like the producer. He's trying to keep everything together. He's trying to make sure everybody's sort of looked after. You've got the staff who are told, one of the staff, she says, it's like my movie posters coming to life, and then the guy next to her says, yeah, you will come to hate these people. And you've got Leslie Mann and David Duchovny who are playing this sort of couple that they've split apart, but they sort of they during their last split they just adopted a boy who is like an adult, like an almost adult kid who just hates them.
Right.
And they're talking over Skype and things, and there's weird things going on with them. David Duchovny's basically just playing Hank Moody.
Okay.
Which is brilliant.
I
love it. And you've just got there's a new girl who they've hired, which we find out they've hired this new girl because they want her to do the younger stuff, because obviously she's younger than Karen Gillan, and Karen Gillan was the younger one before, and she's played by Leslie Mann and Judd Apatow's daughter. I think it's Iris. And she's like a TikToker, and she does these dances and stuff. And there are they do these TikTok dance sequences from time to time, and they're actually really funny and really good because everybody gets involved.
Right.
And the one standout performance for me was Pedro Pascal. He is amazingly funny in this.
Oh, good. You don't very often see him in like comedy stuff these days, so.
He's got this brilliant bit. He goes up to the girl on the desk and he says, "Would you like to have sex with me?" And she says, "Yes, but you have to meet my father first. And then if he likes you, then we can maybe court for a couple of months." And then it's like slowly backs away, and she just smiles at him. It's really funny. He's this completely sort of like losing his mind. Like, there are these great drug moments. What I will say is, so it's very hit and miss.
Right.
There are some genuinely funny stuff in it, and there are some stuff that just clangs.
Okay.
It's too long.
Right.
It's 2 hours long, and it really dips towards the end. You just sort of think, I know they're, because they're literally, there are bits where they're like, we just want to get the fuck out of here, so they hire security to keep them in. They put trackers on them so that they can't get out because one of them like gets away, sort of thing. And the guy, I can't remember the guy who's Mr. Best. This is played by Ross Lee. He looks, I think he's been in comedy stuff before. He's in like the Keith Lemon Show and stuff like that.
Right.
He is hilarious as this completely psychotic head of security who, is treating them like they're prisoners in a sort of camp. And he's really hilarious. I thought he was great. And some of the effects on some of the creatures when they're doing the green screen stuff is really funny.
Okay.
I kind of recommend it because it is funny.
Right.
But it's not great. After a while, the characters do begin to fucking grate on you. And I mean, clearly that's the point. I mean, full kudos for making them, unlikable actors.
Yeah.
Who are only interested in their own selfish things, which and that is really funny. And there's a great with is it Kate McKinnon, who's the sort of one of the studio heads, and they keep having Skype calls with between her and Sarah Fenowich's character, and she says at one point, because of this pandemic, we've got to get this fucking movie finished. You do realise that right now there are only 2 movies in production, and that's us and Tom Cruise. Which I thought was funny. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of recommend it if you want to see a relatively good comedy, because it certainly did make me laugh quite a lot. But there is, there are a lot of clangy moments, and it is too long. It was okay. It was quite good. It was quite fun.
And yeah, I'm not entirely against the pandemic movie.
No.
I must admit that was another thing with Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. They're all wearing masks at the start, getting in cars. I was like, I don't really want this in my entertainment, to be honest. But then I did think about something which I thought was probably the best piece of entertainment for me that came out of the pandemic was Staged. Which I thought was tremendous, and that's
Staged is fantastic.
It's just 2 of the best actors we've got on webcam for 2 seasons. I loved that, and this their partners. Oh my god, it's such a funny series. If you haven't watched Staged, I highly recommend that. That's really good fun.
This is not Staged. This is funny as Staged.
Yeah,
and that's literally just 2 people, mostly 2 people, just bitching at each other.
Yeah, but they're so talented, and they're willing to make fun of themselves.
I mean. They're both completely rib. They take the piss out of their own,
their own ego, their own
back catalogue.
I love the bit when they're arguing over whose name goes first, and they get Dame Judi Dench involved and stuff.
The top billing is hilarious.
God, there's so many good bits. There's Samuel Jackson stuff as well.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus, it's so
the cameos are amazing. It was a great show. Really, really good. I really enjoyed that. This is not that good.
Oh well, that's a shame, but it looks fun anyway.
Like I said, Karen Gillan's great in it. She's fun. Duchovny's kind of just playing Hank Moody, which is fine by me.
That's fine. Yeah.
Fucking love Californication. Leslie Mann's great. I like her point. But yeah, for me, I thought Pedro Pascal was brilliant, which makes me really happy and look forward to. Or what's it called? Is it the Unbearable Weight of Talent?
Yes, the Nicolas Cage movie.
Yes, I think that's made me even more excited for that.
Yeah, I was already on board with that one, but
so yeah, it's really. I would half-heartedly recommend it.
Okay, not a full recommendation, but it's
funny enough. Yeah, you know what I mean. It has its moments. It's too long, but it's funny enough.
Sure. So, what else have you watched?
So I saw the Sparks Brothers.
The Sparks Brothers, yes.
We don't often do documentaries, but this is one that I wanted to watch at the cinema. So it has been out it came out last year.
Yeah.
And it's now on Netflix. And talking of long, this is incredibly long, which I didn't realize until I was like halfway through. I was like, wow, this is a very long. So it's 2 hours 20 minutes.
That is pretty long for a documentary.
So it's very long, but it is pretty comprehensive. I mean, they have 25 – 26 albums.
Right.
And it literally goes through – it does this – it walks this amazing line of telling you a lot about them and really telling you nothing about them.
Okay.
It doesn't go into their private lives too deeply. It just goes into the music, how they come up with the music, parts of their growing up. It's directed by Edgar Wright, and it has so many people in it, just sort of gushing over the band. You've got Beck and Jane Wiedlin. Jane Wiedlin's still cute. You've got Tony Visconti, Mike Myers, Weird Al, Nick Rhodes, Steve Jones, John Taylor, Flea. I mean, a massive list of people. Jonathan Ross is in it, which makes me happy. Even got little bits with Neil Gaiman, but it's almost a complete sort of history of them up to this point, and it goes through almost album by album.
So it's comprehensive.
Yeah. So I am a pretty big Sparks fan, so for me it was a no-brainer. If you're interested in music, but aren't a Sparks fan, I would say definitely watch this. It's totally worth it. Maybe watch it in 2 sittings because towards the end it does get a little bit too long, but it's so worth it. It's really, really, really good, and it's Edgar Wright is it's got little Edgar Wright witticisms in it that you can tell but it's also got their fingerprints all over it, and it's like they say in the thing. So many they've never been this band that everybody loves, but they're a band that people know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And almost any musician knows them. Beck at one point says, whenever I've been in with musicians and in tour buses and things, at some point a conversation will go to Sparks.
Yeah.
Sparks will come up.
Mm-hmm.
And their music is so, odd and eclectic and just brilliant. And what was great about it is it reminded me of songs I hadn't heard for a while. Songs I thought, oh God, I'd completely forgotten about that song. I should really go back and listen to that that song. It's like My Baby's Taking Me Home is almost literally just Russell singing My Baby's Taking Me Home for an entire song, but it is so moving and so brilliant, and it's just that that's the beauty of them. They have this amazing ability to write sort of semi-serious jokey songs but not be a joke. You know what I mean? I think most people think that because it's always been that thing for me, like The Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
People take the mick out of The Darkness and they don't consider them a proper band because they don't take themselves too seriously, but they take the music seriously. They're brilliant musicians. The Darkness are one of those bands where they're so sort of silly and jokey that people think, oh, but they're brilliant musicians. They're great writers.
Yeah,
they're fun. And I think that's the similar thing with Sparks. Some people don't take them seriously, but just listen to their lyrics.
Yeah,
and it's one of the best.
It's interesting anyway, isn't it? I mean, like bands that are like comedy bands.
Yeah,
it's I've always found it interesting because it's like the music is still incredible, and the writing is very clever. It's very it's weird how we take comedians seriously in their work, but a comedic band or a band that are kind of in that grey area, people don't take seriously. It's like, but the musicianship and the writing is still amazing.
Yeah.
If it was a comedian doing a stand-up routine of the same caliber, you would be praising them.
Yeah.
It's odd. But that's interesting. That's a long documentary though. It's very comprehensive.
It is a very long documentary, but I think if you're someone who likes music documentaries, and will watch any sort of music, because I've watched documentaries on rappers and stuff, and I have no interest in rap music whatsoever.
No.
But I do, I find the actual, the processes and knowing about these bands interesting. So even if you've never heard of Sparks or you don't really like Sparks, it's worth it just to see, how they work and how they came up with these things and how, and the way they moved and like they're ex-members of their bands because they've gone through quite a lot of different sort of versions of Sparks, if you like. Even there, they don't seem to have any animosity towards the band. They're like, it was just, we had our time. They moved on, which was a shame, but that's just the way it works.
It's life.
They're sort of proper artists. You know what I mean? They're not. They're not. They do the whole. As somebody says at one point, they do the whole art for art's sake thing. They could have gone commercial at any point, but they just didn't. They just sort of went, no, we've done this. We're moving on now.
Yeah.
Which is what's always made them fantastic. And they did that amazing thing a while ago where they literally did 20 odd dates where they did an album a day.
That's ridiculous.
Exactly. And the band is like, we had to learn they practiced for months, but they had to learn every album, and once they'd learned that album, they had to learn the next one.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jesus Christ, that would just be exhausting,
Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely loved this documentary. I thought it is long, but it's really fucking good, and it's really insightful. Even though it isn't like as insightful as you probably like, but I think that's part of their mystique. Keeping them slightly mysterious is one of those things that that makes them good.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, if you're a music fan, or if you're a Sparks fan, this is the documentary for you. It's brilliant. I really loved it.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I think that's all of the films and things we've watched.
Yeah. So let's see what we. We should probably mention Bruce Willis being retiring.
Yeah, so Bruce Willis is retiring due to
aphasia,
brain damage, right?
Mm.
Or an illness.
Cognitive brain disorder.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, does this explain some of his behaviors?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how long he's had it. So it's hard to say. I know Bruce Willis. I mean, there's a lot of Bruce Willis movies I absolutely love. But he has had a reputation for quite some time. And whether that is due to this or not, I guess we'll never know. But it's certainly, I mean, it's horrendous, regardless, and regardless of what you think of Bruce Willis or the way he's behaved recently, and that could be down to, I say recently, I mean like decades now, really.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the thing, isn't it? It seems. I don't know whether this is
It could be something that he's lived with for a long time, though. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
But at the same time, regardless of how you feel about him, I think he's an incredibly talented actor. When he wanted to be, when he put the effort in, he was great. And this is horrible. It's horrible that this has happened to anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's horrible, and it's a shame he's retiring from acting. But if he doesn't feel capable of putting in the same performance, then I completely understand why you would want to do that. So yeah, awful news.
Yeah, hopefully there is a treatment that you can.
I hope so. Yeah,
pull through it.
At least step away from acting, sure, but I hope he can live a happy life going forward, and get the care he needs.
It sounds like his family are taking pretty good care of him and stuff. So
yeah, that's great.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, some bad news there for sure.
Yeah. So in the never-ending, it seems, list of people that have been added to the Crow remake.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
We now have Bill Skarsgård and director Rupert Sanders.
Is Bill Skarsgård playing Eric, or a new character, or not even playing the Crow character?
Well,
I saw the headline and I couldn't be bothered to read it, so that's as far as I've seen is the headline.
I mean, the last I heard, they were going to do the actual closer to the comic than the movie.
Now, I've heard this before.
Exactly.
Remember when they did Carrie and they were like, this is going to be closer to the book?
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. I've read the book. Have you read the book?
Yeah. Well, the problem with that one is that they set out to do that, and then the studio went,
no.
Why haven't you got this bit in it?
I know, and they're like, because that's not in the bloody book.
That's from the film.
Yeah.
That's not. So they said, oh no, put that in. So that was the fucking studio again, being dicks.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't know who the studio are here, but I feel like they're probably going to do the same here.
Let's
because
face
the
it.
comic and stuff is quite different.
Yes. I mean, we covered.
I think we did cover it. Oh, of course we did. We covered the movie. Yes. Movie. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So when we mentioned how different it is.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying it's going to be filming in Prague. It's Munich. It's been given a $50 million budget.
Well, that's lower than I was expecting.
Yeah. I mean,
by today's standard, that's low.
Well, that's why I think Momoa and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, that's probably Momoa's salary.
That's why they dropped out, because they were being I think they said they due to budgetary issues is why they left the project. So Uwe Sanders did Ghost in the Shell. And I liked Ghost in the Shell, actually.
The movie.
Yes,
I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of people said. The ending's awful. That CGI fucking shitfest that happens at the end is terrible. But yeah, overall,
I actually enjoyed it.
It's not Alita levels of good.
No, Alita,
but it's great. It's good.
I mean, it doesn't remotely compare to the original anime, which
none of them do. But I mean, in terms of adaptations, I thought Alita is like the gold standard for me of adaptations at this point.
I thought Johansson did a pretty good job as the Major.
Yeah, she was fine.
Yeah,
I think Scarlett Johansson's a great actress.
Yeah.
From Ghost World to
Love
whatever Avengers. I don't know. She's great.
We should cover Ghost World. I like Ghost World.
It's my fiance's favorite film.
Is it really?
It's up there. Yeah, I'd never watched it until she like introduced me to it, and I thought, God, what a film!
The reason I watched Ghost World is because I vaguely knew of the comic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a pretty big Buscemi fan, so it's like, oh, Steve Buscemi's in it, so it's good. It's like, it's gonna be good. Yeah. So I mean, the thing is that with the latest remakes, there's been so much. They've all pretty much been pretty rubbish. I don't know. If you can do the comic and you can make it like the comic, fair play to you. Go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
I guess, I'm not hopeful for it, but who knows?
You never know. You never know. And to be fair, having a lower budget might actually do it.
Yeah, because to be fair, you don't really need a big budget to do it.
No. It just I always think it's kind of almost reflective of a studio's faith in something at this point.
Yeah.
But
this doesn't sound like they've got that much faith in it.
But that again could be a good thing. It could be one of those movies that slips by the studio and they don't really pay attention to it, and we don't get that studio interference, and it could be something great. So who knows?
Yeah. What else have we got? Oh, we mentioned the Star Trek thing. So.
Oh yeah, Star Trek continues to look shit. Is that what we're talking about?
So of course they announced on First Contact Day.
Yes.
That Picard season 3 will have the rest of the next gen crew in it,
except for Will Wheaton, which is weird because he's like the one that's been involved the whole time.
Yeah, he's been the one that
they were like,
totally,
fuck Will Wheaton,
whoring for
I know, like production. He does the talk show thing, and I always see clips of him like bigging it up, and then they're like, yeah, all of next gen are back apart from Will Wheaton. It's like, okay,
well, he can fuck off anyway,
I guess.
He brought out that fucking story about Shatner being a dick to him on the set.
Oh, I haven't seen that story.
It's a good story. He told it years ago, and it actually did make me sort of feel for him slightly.
Right.
But now he's just bringing it out to try and make Shatner look bad. Well, that's how I see it anyway. And Shatner was like, "Oh, fuck off! Like, get over it." Shatner's like, "Just fucking get over it."
Shatner's like 90. He doesn't give a fuck about anyone at this point, does he?
Exactly. He's like, say what the fuck you want.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Shatner's been to space. He doesn't care about what you say.
I can tell you now that when I reach the age of 90, I will not give a shit what anyone says about me. Like, if I've made it that far, I'm like, whatever. Yeah, he's been to space. Yeah. Yeah, so the cast of the next gen are coming back. They've
also said it's going to be the last season, the final season as well. It's like, well, that seems.
Well, they shot them all back to back, didn't they?
I think they're halfway through filming season 3 right now. Apparently.
But I guess the point is, and this kind of, I could be totally wrong here, but it's bizarre that you would release a trailer for season 3 halfway through season 2.
Yeah.
And to me, that says that people probably aren't watching it. But the point is, it's probably the final season. If this season's doing really bad, it's probably the final season because they filmed them back to back.
Yeah.
Which is why I think this season is set in the past, because then they have to spend that much money because they can constantly just, they can just film on location.
As soon as we heard that, it's going to be a time travel one. It's like, yeah, we know why that is then.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, I have not watched season 2 of Picard. I hear I was almost tempted because at first I was like, well, I didn't like season 1. I'm not really interested in season 2. I don't like Discovery. I'm just not interested at all. But then I heard
myself sticking with season fucking 1.
Yeah.
I should just quit halfway through.
I wanted to see it through. Once I started, I was like, I'll see it through. Too. But I was curious when I heard quite good reviews of like episode 1, episode 2. It was like, okay, maybe I should. But by episode 3 and 4, because I decided to wait, I thought I'll wait and hear what people say. And now it just sounds terrible. So I'm like, okay, fine, I won't bother. Now, will TNG cast coming back make me want to watch season 3? Again, I'm gonna wait and see. We'll hear the reviews and wait and see. I personally, my personal thought on this is that the TNG cast, they're not going to be the stars of the show. No. They're going to be guest cameos. They'll turn up in the odd episode or whatever. Like I said, Worf burnt the pizza or whatever, like Riker in fucking season 1. I just, if it's a full-on
cast
reunion.
That was one of the pure joys, though, seeing Riker and even though I think Marina Sirtis is a questionable person, I think seeing those two characters was lovely.
It's great to see them.
I mean, it's terrible fucking, episode.
But wasn't it like? And then it was like, oh yeah, like our daughter's dead, or our son's dead because there was some thing that only an android brain could fix, and the Federation's banned them. We couldn't, and no one else in the entire universe uses androids, so they just had to die. What?
I mean, the funniest thing for me was, forgetting how fucking massive Jonathan Frakes is, and then seeing him.
Oh, dude! Like when he hugs Picard, it's like, holy shit!
Like Jesus Christ, he's like this bear of a man hugging a small child.
Yeah. I also think, though, do you not think that, even if this season 2 is doing really well, and I don't know, it might be, if season 2 is doing really well, like, Patrick Stewart's fucking so old now. Surely they're like, we're lucky to get to season 3.
I think that's probably another reason why they still did season 3, just in case we get
back to back
or something. I think they held off for a long time because of the filming with him because of the pandemic. I mean, how long was the gap between season 1 and 2? It's been a while.
It felt like a couple of years, maybe. I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, it's not going to bring me back, that's for sure. Because the thing is, in my head, none of these new Star Trek series are relevant.
Do you know what it will do for me?
They don't exist in my Star Trek universe. So
no, sure. I think what it will do for me is it will probably make me watch a clip or two on YouTube. That's probably what will happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? If there's like rave reviews, then I'm like, okay, maybe I will. But like season 2,
I will definitely see Gates McFadden. I mean, I love Gates McFadden, so I'm more than happy to.
She's on IMDb at the moment, isn't she? Like IMDb TV have got like some show called Center Seat or Center Chair, and she's in that. I don't know what it is. It looks like a Star Trek documentary, I'm guessing, but I don't know.
But I haven't seen it either.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting news. Maybe they can turn it around in season 3. From what I'm hearing of season 2, I was almost tempted, but it sounds like it's terrible now again. So I just don't have time. I've got up there. I've got all the movies, the original series, Enterprise, TNG, Voyager, DS9. I have got Star Trek for like a year if I want to. I don't need new Star Trek if it's crap.
Yeah.
I'll happily take good stuff, but I'm not interested. By the way, Paramount have apparently done a 4K restoration of a new director's cut of the motion picture, which I'm very interested in seeing.
Yes, I did hear about that.
Yeah, apparently it's very well done as well. So that's something I'll be keeping an eye out for. Apparently fixes a lot of the issues they had with the original movie, and a lot of the kind of things they wanted to do but couldn't or had cut is apparently in this version. It's different to the version they made in the early 2000s. So yeah, I'm quite excited for that. That could be interesting. But as for new Trek, I don't know. Like I said to you before we went on air, I really liked Anson Mount as Pike, and I'm seeing this Strange New World trailer, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could be more excited about it. I don't think I'll even end up watching it, but I really like him as Pike, and I wish he could be in a better show.
No, all the trailers I've seen for that just make it look fucking awful.
I mean, it at least looks fun. That's something that I think Strange New Worlds has going for it that everything else doesn't, because everything else is so dour and miserable. And
it does look like they've tried to make it a little more Star Trek.
That, yes. So that's in itself makes it kind of interesting, but
it still doesn't make me want to watch it. And like you said, I like Anson Mount. I think
he's fantastic.
Hell on Wheels is a phenomenal series.
He was the reason I stuck with Discovery through season 2, because like his Pike was great. And I was like, oh, I really like this Pike. But now I'm like, which is why when it got to season 3, I was like, oh, Pike's not even in this one. Ditch it.
It's got a fucking Noonien sung on the crew, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, you've got to. So
what the fuck?
I am hearing from season 2 of Picard that it's like every reference they can shoehorn into an episode at this point.
You said about the fucking Gary 7.
Gary fucking 7 is like bewildering to me. One of the most goofy things in Star Trek, and it was very of its time, but it was a backdoor pilot for another show. But that's such a goofy thing to be taking.
I love the Gary 7 episode.
Yeah, you said.
No, it's like you said. It completely takes away from Star Trek. But I really I'd love to have seen a Gary 7 show.
The best thing about the Gary 7 episode is that, like, for fucking reasons that they never explain ever again, they open with like Shatner just being like, Kirk, he's just like, yeah, we've gone back in time to do some surveying of in time. And it's like that literally never happens ever again in Star Trek. Does anyone ever just like, yeah, just gonna go around the sun a couple of times and fuck off back to the past and do a survey. We'll be back in a bit, guys.
Yeah. That is
it's bizarre.
But, completely out of place. But yeah, I mean, I do like the Gary 7 episode. It is.
I mean, he's got a cat, which is good.
It's got a cat lady.
I see a black cat. Yes.
It's a cat lady.
I wonder if that's who it is.
And Terry Garr is brilliant. I love Terry Garr's character in that as well.
But yeah, so it's interesting. I will wait and hear the reviews, I think, from people I trust on this, who were initially quite happy with season 2, but then have now gone, nah, it's crap. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
Trek Yards seem to still be quite positive about it, so that's something.
Well, I think they're the only people that I know.
Yeah, they are about the only people I've heard be positive about it. But that's kind of what I like from Trek Yards. That's kind of what I love about Trek Yards, is that they are very positive about Trek all the time when they can be. When they find something rubbish, it is truly bad, like, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I can't say that it's really convinced me to watch season 3 or even bother with the rest of season 2. I think that's the most bewildering thing. Releasing a trailer for your 3rd season halfway through your 2nd season is weird. That is really weird. Unless even if this season ends with them like, oh, we've screwed everything up and we need to fix everything, how are we going to do this, and it ends on a massive cliffhanger, that's when you drop your trailer. Not now. It's weird, really bizarre. Why don't you drop the trailer for the next episode? Instead of the next season.
It does sound desperate. It sounds like they're like, stay with us because look what we've got coming next season.
But the thing is, you're in the past now. So them coming back next season is no reason for me to sit through this season, even if even if I'm excited about that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Doctor Who's back at Easter.
I saw the trailer for that. That looks terrible as well.
Looks terrible. I do like the Sea Devils look good though.
Yeah, the Sea Devils look fine.
It's nice to see. I thought the same with the Sontarans in the trailer for the last season that I didn't watch.
I mean, I did think it was a bit odd that they chose to pick an older version of the Centaurans.
It is weird when they've redesigned it to then go back to the original.
Yeah.
But fine. But the Sea Devil outfits look cool, and all of that. But yeah.
I mean, to be fair, with the Centaurans, I really like the modern versions.
Yes, I do as well. I have weirdly, I have like a very vivid memory of the Sontaran from I forget the name of the episode, the medieval one, Pertwee. Time Warrior.
Yes, Time Warrior.
I have that image of that first reveal of the Sontaran burned in my mind as a child, and I always thought it really was scary when I saw it as a kid. So I have a very I have a real love for that design for that reason, because it's very burned into my mind as like this moment in my childhood when I first saw that. But I love the redesign. I think the redesigns are great. So is there anything else you want us to bitch about, or
I think that's it.
or be positive about? Maybe, I don't know. What are we going to cover next week, Matt? What are we going to watch?
I've got two options for you.
Hit me.
Terminator.
Ooh.
Or Escape from New York.
Oh, you fuck. Oh, God, I love both of those movies.
I mean, we'll do them both eventually anyway.
I know, but I know that we won't come back around to the other one for a long time because of the way we cycle.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Nope.
I tell you what, I only because I haven't watched it for ages and I want to watch it. Let's do Escape from New York.
Cool.
I love the Terminator, and we'll definitely cover it. But I haven't watched Escape from New York for ages, and I've been thinking about watching it lately. So
that's actually, I think that's a good idea. That's good because it's been a while since I've seen New York. I saw Terminator.
I thought you were going to be like, I watch LA every week, but
oh God, LA. No. Do you know, I think I'm going to rewatch that anyway.
It's got some moments. It has moments. It's just a horribly misjudged film.
It's very...
And I don't mean misjudged by the audience. I mean misjudged by the director and everyone involved.
Everyone involved, yeah.
But yeah. Cool. Yeah, Escape from New York next week. Sounds good to me.
That's what we'll do.
But anyway, thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.